Okay. Um, so the main thing I wanted to talk about was just like the different expectations for like what we're going to be reading and talking about, and how it'll work pretty differently from like what we usually do, which is read fiction or poetry. Well, actually, it's mostly fiction anyway, right? Read fiction and then analyze it for what it means. We're going to be reading four fairly difficult books. I mean, not really difficult. I try to choose like ones that are pretty, pretty straightforward. The Agony of Eros is probably the most difficult one, but it's also the shortest one. It's super short. So it has that going for it. And all of it's very like dense though. There are like a lot of ideas packed into it, so we're going to be like doing a lot of close reading and just kind of going through, sometimes like sentence by sentence. We will be moving, that means like according to the speed that we have to move. Like if we get through two books for the semester, we get through two books for the semester. I'm more focused on what we can get out of the books than like how far we get in an arbitrary length of time. um, right? Because you're like, I don't know. The worst part about the semester is that like you're supposed to do all these things on a set time, right? You have to like process all of your thoughts and put them in like a perfect essay in 15 weeks, um, which is of course never going to happen. So we're going to try to break some of the rules with the course. One is like there's not like a good set schedule. I put a schedule in here and it says approximately this. Oops, I guess we don't have we don't have, well, okay, this is during exam week now. Oops, my computer sucks too. This is during exam week, but we'll do like mini presentations, sort of like the videos, if we have time. But hopefully, maybe we'll just cut out something else. This is the order we'll read the books in. So however far we get, it's going to be in this order. This is because I think they build on each other pretty well this way. Eros the Bittersweet is going to give us a kind of foundation for how to think of desire. Carson thinks of it in like a triangular form. And what's going to be important to us is that between the person who wants something and the thing that is desired, there's a lack, right? There's a space between there. So that like if we want, pizza, right? And we haven't gotten the pizza yet, we have a desire for the pizza. But if we have already eaten it, like if we get the pizza and we eat it, the desire, hopefully goes away because we've gotten it. So desire really relies very heavily on the space between the thing, wanting the thing and getting the thing. And that negative space is going to be really important to us. When we talk about desire for this course too, we're going to think of it as eros, which is like encompassing, right? If you think of eros as Cupid, which is like the Greek name for Cupid, it represents both like a kind of desire, but also like what we think of as romantic love, or love in general. And one of the interesting things I think about thinking of it as Cupid is the Greeks thought that love, that desire, like kind of flies right out of the air and hits you, and you don't really have any control over it. That it's an outside force. It's a force outside of your body, and the things that you want, you like very rarely get to decide on your own. And you can probably think of that like maybe you've had the experience of like liking somebody that probably you shouldn't like, or like that you would think you wouldn't like, or being attracted to somebody that like that. uh, that's kind of how the Greeks felt about it. Like, crap, now I'm in love with this person, but I know I shouldn't be in love with this person. um, and we've come a long way in thinking about why that is. And that's where we're kind of going with it, which is first we go to like, actually, it takes a long time to get from Plato to like thinking about the world differently, really. So it's like Freud, basically, who's thinking like, oh, well, actually, you're getting a lot of these desires from your parents. Though clearly he's like obsessed with sex, and in a really weird way. So then there's people who are trying to rethink Freud, but Freud is like the basis of a lot of the stuff that we still talk about, and like why we go to therapy. And then, once you get to like 18 or 19, it's pretty recent, like 1980s in America, but I think it's like 50s in Europe. You have people rethinking it, and that's where you get like mm, post-colonialism and stuff, right? People thinking like, oh, it's not actually just in the family or in the South. It's really very much like the culture that says you should want to be, thin or, you know, a muscular man or whatever, right? Like whatever the kind of cultural values are, um, and those really influence how we think of what we think we want, even though, right, maybe they're not so much personal values. So we're going to go in that order approximately. The theories, what we call theory is a way of like saying that these things across many different genres are all thinking about the same things, and that you have to be able to put them all together. So before theory, there was like, right, philosophy on the one hand, theology on the one hand, what are the other things? Physics, um, blah blah blah. And theory is like an attempt to unite those things all as theories, right? Theories about how the world works. Um, Personally, I think this is literature. I mean, I don't know what it would be if it's not literature. So um, we're teaching it, we're learning it. We're in here as a literature class, though it's not fiction or poetry or kind of what we call creative writing. Um, it kind of really explodes in the 1950s in France in structuralism, which starts with like uh, a person named something Saussure who thinks like, actually these words don't really represent, like, are just representations of things, right? When we say apple, it's not like a literal apple, it's a symbol for an apple, and for some reason nobody has thought of this before, which seems baffling to me. But anyway, nobody's thought of this before. And it really completely changes the way people think about the world, and that they start to realize that so many of the things we think of as kind of literal are all just only symbolic and never completely access the thing that we want. And so that's where we're starting the course, is in this idea that um, even when we say we want a pizza, and even when we get the pizza, we're getting like a kind of representation of the thing that we actually want, which is like, I don't know, uh, love from our parents who would never give us pizza or something, or whatever it is, um, on the far end of that. And so we have these different ways of representing that deeper desire, but we never actually get the thing that we want, which is to be one with the world the way we were a baby, if you believe kind of psychoanalysis. Um, so it starts with the language, and it builds from linguistics to sociology and philosophy and literary theory, and kind of post-colonialism and so on and so forth. And this is kind of the dominant way of thinking about things in the theoretical world now. Um, that's what we're going to be studying. So I just wanted to, like last time I taught this, people were like, what? I thought we were going to read like romance novels, which we aren't. You could still read them, obviously. Actually, I think it would be really interesting to read them alongside this theory, um, because all of this theory is going to say your desire is corrupt, right? And that's going to be like a main theme for the class. Your desire is corrupted. Um, by society, by culture, by like the fact that we can't actually represent exactly what we want. And so when you want something that's not exactly what you want, then you have to live this kind of weird symbolic life that we live. Um, that's just introduction to this. I think, basically the other stuff is straightforward. We will do one weekly Zoom thing. On Fridays, you will turn in a video. This week is just an intro, but for future weeks, it'll just be like the questions that you have about what we talked about in class and what you're reading. So, um, again, just like a 3 or 4 minute video with these questions. I'm going to put them together and try to address them for the second part of our class. And hopefully that'll work. I just felt like it would be too much. I think it's too much to be on Zoom so often. It seems like really annoying and exhausting, and like even though you're just sitting there, um, not the same as a classroom. So this is my way of trying to get around that by doing something else for the second half of the course. And then you've got some assignments. The assignments will be a midterm exam, which is just going to be a kind of like essay, taking the stuff that you've said in your videos, or even just like 1 or 2 of the videos, and writing it in some kind of written form, since this is a writing emphasis class, which made perfect sense when we were in person, but now is screwed anyway. And then you have a final project. So for the course, this is the main thing that you will do. And you can start thinking about it now. And it can be in any form that you want. What I really want is for you to address desire in a way that you feel is productive to your own creative life. So if you're interested in, I don't know, sculpture, then you can do it in sculpture. If you're interested in writing fiction, you can do it in a story. If you're interested in science, you can create a science experiment. If you're interested in, I don't know, anti-racist protest, you can do it as an anti-racist protest. Though I don't know how much you guys can gather on campus. Um, but so it's going to be in any form you want. It just should address the things that we're talking about, and like the key to the course hopefully is going to be that desire is just like a part of our everyday life all the time. And so anything you do will have something to do with desire. So anything you do is good for a project as long as you're really thinking about what desire has to do with it. You should do some research, which, I'm just thinking of like go online, read a couple of articles or things about desire that's outside of our class, or even like how desire factors into sculpture, right? And then incorporate those in how you do your project. We will have, hopefully if we have time, some presentations of sorts at the end in the last week of class. Here's the grading. So I'm giving you like 10 free points for this thing that you can do on your phone in 5 to 10 minutes by tomorrow. The course is not supposed to be like, I think it's going to be, let's say like time consuming or like brain consuming, but not grade consuming. I don't really believe in, I shouldn't say this on recording either. I don't believe in grades. So, um, I'm going to, use these things, I guess, to report that what you did, and also to like try to measure in some ways that you've gotten something out of this course. But that's really what grading should do. I'm not too concerned with you like doing a certain amount of busy work for a certain grade. Um, the if you've been in other kind of classes of mine that weren't creative writing, but I just think of this all the time, creative writing too. This is really the question that we should be asking. And if you feel like it's not mattering to you, like it doesn't really apply to your life, then you should be able to ask why. Why are we talking about this at any point in time? And we should be able to try to figure out what it does have to do with your life. because I do think it all hopefully will have to do with your life. And if it doesn't, we'll drop it and move to something else. Okay, any questions about that? You have your regular, right? Like, don't plagiarize. That sucks. If you need accommodations, you know what? I copied and pasted this from the thing the provost gave us, but there's clearly a missing part of this sentence here. I don't know what it is. You got trigger warnings. I don't think any of these will really. I don't think you would need a trigger warning for any of this stuff, possibly. But if you have like specific concerns, then please tell me, and I'll think and see if we possibly do. There's definitely like, it's all about power, so it's going to be like there's sexism and racism, and or addressing those things, and also there is sexism in like the Plato, for example, and like weird things that like the Greeks thought it was like cool to have sex with young boys, so like that's a thing that is part of, and that we have to read into anything that is part of the thought at that time. So those things, are going to be a part of the readings, even though like, it's not directly on the page. But so, protect yourself if you need to. And I can help if I know what to help protect you from. Okay, questions about the syllabus? Let's go to Moodle. Let me do this. Moodle. Nope. Yes. Okay. You should all be in Moodle now. This is a picture from a book on Lacan. It's like, it's saying the kind of thing that I was talking about before, that you have all these things telling you what you should do to have like a acceptable desire, or to be acceptably desired, right? To be desirable in a way that society wants you to be. And those things kind of inform your desire, even when you don't want it to, right? Even when you're actively fighting back against it. And I think we should be actively fighting back against it. Everything is in here. I'll put whatever content we have in here on this part of the page. And then eventually, I tried to keep this very minimal, but eventually we'll have things to do that'll be on here. I guess I'll have to put something for the self-intro video, but just email it to me. Okay. Stop sharing. All right, I'll just ask one more time. I know you guys don't have any questions, but just in case you have questions that are burning and pressing, even if they're like, I don't know, what do I do on campus tomorrow since I'm not supposed to hang out with people?
What do I do on campus tomorrow?
I knew you were going to do that, Olivia. I was like, I bet Olivia is going to say that. I don't know. Sorry. I didn't say I would answer them. I just said if you had
The
the
correct
question.
answer is sit in classes. What are you talking about? Like, tomorrow's still Friday.
A lot of the USIM classes, that's right, I forgot. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the class actually, maybe this is good prep for the fact that like we're going to end up with a lot more questions than we have answers to. So that's good. I think it's really good. The older I get, the more I feel like the answers are all bullshit anyway. So like just the questions are the only thing that matters. And like you spend most of your life destroying all of the answers that you thought were answers earlier in your life, like that you were taught were answers. Like, how do you behave in, amongst other people? As a kid, I thought you like hit them with sticks or something,
Wait, you
so,
don't hit them with sticks?
No, you don't hit them with sticks, right? So, I think you spend your
I've
whole life
enjoyed
kind
it,
of
bro.
undoing the things, right, that you think are like normal things, um, because they're all societal. Let's talk about Lacan. Lacan, who is a French psychoanalyst who believes that Freud is a smart dude, but just didn't know how smart he was. Basically, like, was too obsessed with sex to like see that he actually had like good ideas there. Um, if you took them farther, there's actually a lot of people who call themselves Freudians, who are basically saying like, okay, like Freud had a lot of good ideas, but he ruined all of them. But he was like had them, and they were there, and if you access them, you can actually get good stuff out of it. So I'm going to share this again, and I think we can do this with annotate. Yes, no, yeah, okay. So anybody should be able to annotate this. That's what I think is the thing that Zoom can do.
Yeah, if you go up to view options up at the top where it says you're viewing Matthew Salas's screen, if you go up there and you hit annotate, then you have a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. So
we were doing this literally in my last class.
Oh, good. Okay. So I think this will help, right? Because then I can see like, oh, these are things that you guys think are interesting or you have questions about as we go through. Lacan, and I think this will be helpful too, that Lacan had this like really interesting formula for ways to, he didn't think of these as totally separate, but ways to kind of categorize the world into three things, three realms, and he called it the symbolic, the imaginary, and the real. Before that, people kind of thought of it, coming from the linguistics thing, as like the symbolic and the thing, right? You say the word, and it's not exactly the thing, but the word stands for the thing, right? Like I say, I don't know, soccer, and obviously there's no soccer there, but in our head we have the idea of soccer, and soccer is the other thing. But so for Lacan, he's saying, well, okay, but that's not actually the thing. It's not actually soccer, and it's pretty easy to prove this, right? Like if every one of us thinks of soccer or says the word soccer, we have a slightly different idea, or sometimes a very different idea of what that is. And so that image that we have, that's the imaginary. He's going to say the image that we have is the imaginary, and the real is something that we can't access about the imaginary. So we're never going to totally get the thing that is real. And it's kind of a confusing term, because what he means is like in like ordinary words is like the unreal. It's not like what we think of as reality, right? It's a thing that reality can't access. It's like the thing that we really, really want, which is, to be one with the world or whatever. The symbolic is how we express ourselves. So words, the important thing for our class is going to be that the symbols always inherently contain lack. The word for sister is not, right, the sister. And we use words. So if you think of how a baby starts learning to speak, they learn to speak because they don't get what they want, right? And it's interesting too, because sometimes people will say this very directly to you. Like if your kid, one of my children was a late speaker, and my mother-in-law and other people would say, like, you're giving him everything that he wants, so he has no reason to say anything. Like he has no reason to ask for something because you just give it to him. You should give him less stuff. But that is kind of why we start to speak. We want something and we aren't getting it, right? So because we aren't getting it, we have to make our kind of desire heard. And the only way that we have to do that, unless we're like, and a lot of it's like gesturing at first or pointing, is to use words. Words are the most kind of efficient way of doing it. So words are symbols, but also for Lacan, the things that we want are not the literal things, right? They're symbols themselves. So when we say the mother, and you think of like the mother as the being that provides what the baby doesn't have. Um, that is really just a symbol. I mean, for Lacan, he's saying like these things that Freud tied like directly to gender and sexuality um, are actually like only symbolic. So he's going to just call them like the name of the mother and the name of the father, using Freud's terms, but like trying to keep in mind that they don't necessarily have to be like a literal woman who gave birth to the baby. It's the thing that you think will provide you with what you want. And interestingly, for Lacan, he's going to say what we want is determined by the other, um, or is constructed by the other. So when the baby learns that it's a person in the world that's not, that has its own identity, it learns that through realizing that it's not the mother. So I need to get rid of this window. I'm sure you guys can't even see this. Whatever. It learns that through the fact that it doesn't get what it wants immediately. It realizes like when you're in the womb and you get everything that you want immediately, and you don't like maybe don't have any like desires per se because you're one with the mother, and then you come out and you're split from this oneness, and suddenly you need to get food and get, you need your diaper changed or whatever. You realize that you are a separate thing for the first time. And so that's how we kind of create this idea of what the self is through the other. So Freud would say, right? Freud says the father's phallus takes away the mother, and that's why we, men go through the Oedipus thing and feel as if they're castrated and want to kill their fathers. Like Freud believed all this really literally, but Lacan is going to say, okay, so if we just turn that into like what it actually is, which is symbols, then we can understand that when the child thinks of the mother as the thing that gives, whatever that is, that gives it what it wants, some kind of parent usually or caretaker, then that person is showing them that they are not, that they have their own individuality. But it's also saying like, sometimes that person disappears. And that's like a really traumatic thing to a baby. I mean, they'll often cry, and babies think that people are like, have basically died or something when they're gone. They don't think of it as like a temporary leaving at first. And so the thing that takes it away is what Lacan's going to say Freud meant by the phallus. And he's going to call it the name of the father, since it can be obviously anything. It could be work, right? The mother goes to work, or the mother watches TV, or whatever, right? The mother wants some fucking time off and leaves the baby for a second. So that is going to be symbolized by the name of the father, and Freud thinks of that as like literal castration, almost literal castration. But Lacan's just going to say, okay, that something is taking away the thing that will provide the baby with what it wants, right? And we experience this all the time, right? We want something and we can't get it, and many times we'll think of it as like the fault of something else, right? I want, I want a good grade in this class, but because this person was distracting me, I didn't get it, right? So that other person becomes the castrating thing, the thing that takes away the thing that would get you what you want. And in that, you start to figure out that there's a subject and somebody else, the other person. I guess I have to stop share to move this. Any questions so far? Okay. Is it boring? Is it? No, not boring. It's hard to tell on Zoom. Okay. Now, so Lacan's going to say that, and this is, I think is really interesting if you think too about like, I put this in there, but like, why does therapy work? If like straight talk therapy can work, and it's worked for me, and I think it works for a lot of people, though, people do different kinds of therapy. If just talking about a problem can help you kind of move towards some kind of healthy relationship with it, which you probably have experienced even with just like talking about something that's bothering you with your friend or your parents or somebody you love, um, and that means the symbols are able to kind of change our desires, or to like help us to uh, have a healthier relationship with our desires. So it also means then that who we think of as ourselves and who we think of as another person, Lacan's going to say those are both actually like in the symbolic order. They're symbols. It's not totally us. And you probably feel this like, I remember, and it still happens to me too. Like if I go to my parents' house, which is my home, I guess, um, I still feel like I'm like in high school, and my parents still treat me as if I'm in high school. And even like because they treat me as if I'm in high school, sometimes I find myself like being like a teenager again, like saying things that I would only say I haven't said for years, right? Um, so the power of that to kind of create this idea of the self is really influential, though that idea of the self is obviously not you. And you have these various selves that you activate all the time. So like to be a student, you kind of take on this kind of student self that is clearly not like the full part of you. Even like when you're in a relationship with somebody, as much as you share with that person, there's a part of you, right, that is like feels like it's all your own, or even there's a part of you that you feel sometimes that you can't share. um, so the thing that you're creating as the subject is is a symbol for you, not actually you. um, so Lacan also is going to say this. It's the same thing with dreams. I think you would easily think dreams should be in the imaginary because they're imagined, but he doesn't mean imaginary as imagined. He means it as image. And so when we think of dreams, they're actually like standing in, we usually read it like this, right? A dream is standing in for something that we want or afraid of or etc. Um, and they're kind of representations that our brain creates while we're sleeping. The symbolic expresses and creates desire for the real. And that's where Lacan is going to kind of bring in the other realms. What we really want, he says, um, is not the pizza, but it's something that the pizza can't give us, right? It's something else that's out there that can't be symbolized in the pizza. When we want the mother too, the reason why we keep wanting our moms or keep wanting the people that we love is because we don't actually get the real. We get the person. And what we really want is something else, which is like maybe love itself or something. Um, so the literal mom or the literal thing cannot satisfy your desire because only the symbol is actually satisfied. For Lacan, and this is where I think it is a little bit iffy, but maybe for Lacan, you can only touch the real through absolute terror or absolute joy. Maybe is kind of what he means by jouissance, like pleasure or something. A lot of translations are going to say like orgasm, basically. So through absolute fear or through orgasm, places where like you stop being able to think, right? And that's what he means. Like you stop being able to think about it, so you can't make the symbols. You can't make the symbols, and all you have is this like real thing. Um, and the way that we get through that, or the way that we kind of make sense of that, is by using symbols again. So we face our fears and we start being able to tell ourselves a story about those fears. But when you're like right in it and you're staring out the window of an airplane and you're afraid of heights, that's just like total brain numbing fear. And in that moment, you're touching the real. That's what Lacan says. The other thing he's going to say, which this is actually I think is really interesting, is Freud has this idea, that like a kind of late idea that he never really is able to understand, that he calls the death drive. And like one of the things that makes all of his theories like not work that well is the fact that people actually want sometimes to destroy themselves. Like sometimes people just want like everything to go away, or for like the pain to stop. And right, some people become suicidal or otherwise. And he can't make sense of this because he has this like really straightforward theory about like what people are supposed to desire. So he's going to call it like a disorder kind of. But he understands that it's like part of this somehow. That desire, that death drive, is like a necessary part of living. Lacan's going to say what you actually desire is to destroy the symbolic, right? You want the real so badly, you want the actual thing so badly, that you try to destroy all of the symbols. But the problem is the symbols are our lives, right? We live in symbols, we live in words and images and like representations of who we think people are, representations of who we think we are, and to destroy all of those, like if you ever had the feeling um, you're not being yourself and you really just want to like get rid of the person that doesn't seem to be you. Maybe you haven't had that feeling, but I have that feeling sometimes. That's a desire to destroy the symbol that of you that is kind of taking over who you are at that moment. But you can't actually do that because that right would be to like not be in the world. So that's what he's going to say is the death drive. But also the literal mother cannot satisfy it. So what should we talk about there? Somebody highlighted this.
I just highlighted it because you were talking about it, so I figured I would,
Oh, okay.
mark
Sorry, I thought it meant you had a question about it.
Nope, just marking it as you go of the stuff that you're focusing on or trying to.
Cool, thanks. Or the other way that desire can go kind of toward an unhealthy, quote unquote unhealthy direction, is by desiring, and this is like his main kind of thing that usually people pull out, le petit object, I don't know, in a French accent. Like imagine that in a French accent. But it's basically like we often, because we can't access our desire directly or fully, we often kind of misplace it, right? And end up wanting something that takes the place of the thing that we really want. So that's what Freud thought of as you want to kill the father just because, right? Like somebody has taken away the mother. I think you can see this constantly though in life, or and maybe it's just me and I have a lot of unhealthy desire, but I feel like sometimes I'll think I want. So here's an example. When my wife died a couple of years ago, and I, like anybody would, I had a lot of grief. And one part of grief that's really weird is you start to feel like the only thing you want is the person that you lost, and nothing else matters. And so you like have only this one really strong desire, but it's an impossible desire, and you know that it's impossible. Um, and so I found myself for like the first year just like buying any like little trinket I could on Amazon that would get there in 2 days, because in the 2 days that I didn't get it, I had something like to look forward to. So I would just kind of wait for those 2 days, and then when I got something, I would just buy something else that I could wait for 2 days for, um, just because I needed something to desire. I needed something to want, some reason to kind of like keep going. Uh, and so I kind of misplaced my desire onto that because I couldn't. My desire was impossible to get. Oh, that's funny how it doesn't go with the. Um, so demand, the things that we demand through language, Lacan's going to say like that is separate from the, this is the same kind of thing. I like this story that my friend told me. So my friend said she like wants her kids, she has 2 kids, and they were yelling at her that they wanted pasta, and she had like already made like chicken or something for dinner. And she's like, I like spent half an hour like making this chicken, and you guys knew I was doing it, right? Like you watched me like make this for dinner, and now you're gonna want pasta. Like, no, I'm not gonna give you this pasta. And they just like had a huge fit about it. And so finally she made the pasta for them. She was like just to shut them up, I'm gonna make this pasta for them. And then as soon as she made it, they were like, no, we don't want it. We don't want the pasta. And so you guys are looking at me like I'm crazy, but this happens with kids constantly. um and so she threw out the pasta. She was like so angry that she was like, fine, I'm throwing it all away, and she tossed it all in the garbage can. And when she like stormed out of the room, when she came back, they were eating the pasta out of the garbage. So like clearly they did want the pasta, right? But Lacan is going to say like all love, all desire is a desire actually for love. And so like and it's really clear with kids because they will do this all the time. And they'll like say that they don't want what they just told you that they did want. My kids do this to me constantly. It drives me crazy. But I try to remember that what they actually want is for the parent to just do something for them, right? They wanted to see their mom makes them pasta. They wanted to see their mom like give up the thing that she had already made and do something specifically for them. And then they wanted to see that their mom would kind of honor their demands that they didn't want pasta and something else, but she didn't do it. But when we really want, there is love. Lacan is going to say we always want love. What we really always want is love. And the problem though with love is that it's not a tangible thing. Right? Like I can't give you love. I can give you pasta, but I can't give you love. So I can only always give you the symbol of love. Real actual love for Lacan is, and this is like really troubling to me, and I think it's so interesting. To love is to give what you do not have. So like if you take that seriously and think, in order to love somebody, actually, you have to give them something that you don't have, it becomes like a really hard problem to get your head around, right? Like, how do you give something if you don't even have it? That's love. And the reason why that is because you can't actually access love in the real. So you can't give it in a kind of object form. You're giving it like through effort, kind of, right? Like my friend was giving love to the kids by just showing them that she would do something for them. That's the only thing that you can do. You can't kind of like give them the actual physical object. So love for Lacan is like basically like a part of self-development. It's like a necessary part of self-development. And this is like really plays itself out even scientifically. Like a baby that doesn't get love will literally die from lack of love. Like if it doesn't get touched, it will die. And so there's a way in which we do need some kind of responsiveness from the thing that the person that we desire from, um, in order to become a subject. The You can see this too if you think like, what's that? There's a child psychologist who's famous for saying, what the parent needs to be is good enough. His name is D.W. Winnicott. Like, because you can't, if you give a child everything, they become spoiled. I guess like you don't want to be friends with the kind of person who got everything they wanted as a child, right? But if you give them nothing that they want or like very little that they want, they become like really sad and like defeated, you know? Or like maybe they turn to some other way of getting it, right? Whether that's like a positive or negative way. So you have to like give enough that they get some of their desires and not so much that they get all of their desires. Um, and that love is actually necessary for what we think of as like a, you know, uh, like a social person, like a person who can like um, fit into our social norms. The person that we like as a friend is probably not going to be, unless you know them really well, the person who got everything as a child or got nothing as a child, because those people are like insufferable. um, they have to, it's a person who's kind of grown up in a certain amount of, who's been loved in a certain amount, right? Um, and a lot of people don't get that much love, I think. And so in many ways, like just the lack of getting enough love, it can corrupt our desires from a young age and forward. Um, because Lacan says that we get our desire from the desire of the other, that's going to have all kinds of repercussions for um, how we think of ourselves in life and what we think we want from the world. Like right now, you may be thinking, especially like if you're a senior, what I want is a job, right? Or like a car, maybe, or whatever, right? Those things are in place of what you really want, but they are totally necessary because of what society tells you you need to have, and you do need to have those things. Um, that's just a kind of like obvious and normal like physical example, but it gets more complicated when you think of like what happens when people are gendered in a certain way, or people are raced in a certain way. People who have disabilities are living in a world in which the world kind of expects them to have the same ableness as other people. So personally, I write a lot about Asian American identity, and the main stereotype right now for Asian Americans is that they're like the good minority, that they've succeeded in some way, that they're like smart and competent and like hardworking. They follow directions and like they don't stir up trouble. Um, the the Even though that seems like sometimes like it's like a positive stereo, like it's much better than like being thought of as like an angry black man or something. Um, the problem is that people, because this is a way that they can be accepted, will start to act in that way just so that they can feel loved. Um, Even though that's like a false kind of love, right? Like it's not a real kind of love. When I was a kid, I was told constantly that I had to be good at math because I was Asian. Like people would just say like straight to my face, like, "Oh, you're good at math because you're an Asian." Um, and I didn't. I'm really bad at math. Like it's clear to me now. I'm really terrible at math, but I had to try so hard because I just wanted to like. This was a point in time. This was like a one way for people to like actually recognize me and see me as somebody useful. And so I like tried really hard to be good at math, and I even got like very good grades in math. Um, and now like I am terrible at math, and I feel like I was probably terrible at math all along. But you do what you do sometimes just so that like people will give you some attention and like possibly some love from it. And so we then like corrupt our own selves because the desires that we have are corrupted. And that's the real danger of desire that we're going to have to face in this course, is that when your desire is corrupted, which it just is, I mean, right? You live in this society of corrupt desire, as you can see probably every time you turn on the news. The real difficulty in that is that because the desire is corrupted, your development of a self as a self is corrupted, right? And your desire for love is corrupted, and you have to fight really hard against that. So that's kind of where we're going with the course. Do we have any questions about all of this Lacan stuff? We're going to kind of leave Lacan behind, except for like as a framework, but he does provide like a useful structure for how to read the books that are coming. So that's why I was trying to use it as an intro. No, everything's super clear. Thanks. Thanks, Emily. Okay, so for tomorrow, sorry, I like the other thing about this pandemic is I don't know what time is anymore. For tomorrow, do the video intro, and for the next class, so that'll be on Tuesday, I want you to read the preface and the first 38 pages of the Carson. So it's like the first 4 chapters. We might not get through all of that, but we'll try to. So 38 pages of the Eros the Bittersweet for Tuesday, and we will meet at whatever this time is, 2:10, 2 o'clock, 2:10 on Tuesday. The Zoom thing should stay the same, as I understand Zoom, for the whole semester, but no, we're at the mercy of whatever this thing is. So hopefully that'll work out. I'm on office hours too from, I'm going to be on office hours like this time usually. So like 12 to 4 on Thursdays, I'm just going to have this running. So if you have any questions, concerns, or just want to meet with me or something, like just shoot me an email that you can meet hopefully sometime during this time. We have class, so you should have this time open. And we can talk about whatever. At some point, we're going to use that time to like talk about projects and stuff. But for now, it's just kind of open to you. And it's supposed to be a time for you to like go through the reading and make your video that'll be due on Fridays. Okay. All right.